On today's show, we look at what happened during the Senior Bowl week. Remember, you can listen on Apple and Spotify or watch on YouTube, as all links are in the description below. We also look at who we're excited about from the Senior Bowl and what some of our holes might be going into this offseason. We'll cover all this and more. You're inside the Johnny Dell Football Academy. Hello, Niner faithful, and welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game. As always, I am Adam Marino, joined by the infamous Mr. Johnny Dell. What is going on?
Man, having a good time recovering from the Senior Bowl. It was quite the trip. If you see, my nose is quite red. I am not related to Rudolph. I was in the sun for 6 hours at the Super Bowl, or Senior Bowl, excuse me. I was on the north end of the stadium, and pretty much it was 6 straight hours in the sun. I was not expecting that. I was not prepared for that. So I didn't have a baseball cap. I didn't have sunblock. So I got a little burnt there. But I was thankful for on my trip to have my friends with Manscaped with me. And I'm talking about my travel companions that I take everywhere. It's the body wash, the Manscaped deodorant. I have their body hair trimmers, everything. Their cologne is awesome. If you don't know, Manscaped does sponsor this channel, and you can use promo code JD49 to get 20% off and free shipping. And I am so excited. I'm going to go home today, and I'm going to have my second use of the new beard hedger. It is their newest product. It is amazing. Adam, I'm gonna have to send you one because you got that big mane going on. And you know what? Don't you hate when you get a beard trimmer and you have all of those different length guard attachments? Okay, they always end up in your drawer. You never know what to do with them. They're always in the way. You got 12 that you'll never use,
and I can't find them. Then I'm like, wait, I thought this one was in this drawer. Seriously.
You can never find the one that you're looking for, right? Or you forget and you think, well, maybe this is the length. You do one pass.
That was the other thing I was going to say. Was it a 3 or a 4? No, was it the 2? I don't even remember what I used the previous month.
You never do. It's like when you go get your hair cut and they say, well, what length guard do you use? And you go, I don't know. The one that she used last time. But the beard hedger, you're going to love this. It comes with one length guard, and it's adjustable up to 20 different lengths. It's amazing. And the Beard Hedger Pro Kit, it comes with beard shampoo, beard conditioner, beard oil, beard balm. It has everything you need to keep that beard looking as amazing as it is. It's the complete kit to take care of your face. They've been known for taking care of your tiddly bits, and now they can take care of your upper bits. And so, they've got you covered from the cheeks to the everywhere else. And so, I was thankful to have my Manscaped pals with me, and they send you, if you get the lawnmower package, you get the platinum package or the perfect package, they send you a go bag, a travel bag that you can keep everything in. And I have 2 of them. I kept all my toiletries and everything I needed for the trip to keep me fresh and smelling nice and well taken care of in those bags. And so it was a great time. It made my trip down to Mobile. I kept calling it Memphis. I don't know why. I live in Alabama and I kept calling it Memphis. I don't know why. But Mobile, get my trip down to Mobile good. And I came back. I pulled into my driveway at about 10:30 at night on Saturday. So it has been a whirlwind. We're now recording this on Monday morning. So it has been a day and a half and really a week, but I'm so glad to be here recording another show with you.
Excited. I wanted to talk through a little bit before we get into the Senior Bowl, because I'm really excited about that. Can we talk about the lowlights of the Pro Bowl? Because there wasn't any highlights. So maybe just seeing George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk having some fun was fun to see for about 18 seconds, and I just wasn't interested. Were you interested even?
No, I didn't even watch the Pro Bowl. I'll be honest, because nothing about it actually got me excited or got me interested. I saw some of the highlights off of Twitter,
Yep.
And a shout out to Jordan Elliott. He had some great coverage. He was there, had some great coverage and interviews with some players there at the Pro Bowl. But, it just feels like the continued money grab of the NFL of trying to make every single thing they do hyper profitable. And, you know, and not to sound so super old, but
Yeah.
back in my day, son, um, back in the day, the Pro Bowl was something that it was after the Super Bowl, and it gave fans something to watch after the season over, to have like a little bit left of the season. And it was like a celebration of the season, of all the accomplishments. You really had the best players there because you had players from the Super Bowl that were there, and these guys, they would just have a lot of fun, and it was always kind of an ego driven game. It was like who was going to come out with some bragging rights on a few things there. But it was meant to be that way. It was meant to be just a celebration of the season. Now this feels like, what can we do to drive up the entertainment value and the revenue value, and because they don't want the cost of sending all the players and all the production all the way out there to Hawaii. But that's what was fun. It felt like the kickoff of the off season. This does not feel like that. This feels like just another way to try and make more money. Personally, as a fan, I would much rather see the Pro Bowl as it was, as a celebration of the season, of the accomplishments, of the incredibly hard work it took for all the players to get there. And it was kind of when Pro Bowl votes meant a little bit more. But that's what I would like to see it go back to, is something after the season, as a kickoff into the offseason, as the last kind of go-away game, where you get to see the best players of the league that have earned their right to be there, not just being there because there's 14 players that are playing in the Super Bowl and they aren't going to go play in the Pro Bowl the week before they play in the Super Bowl. That's, to me, what I would like to see it happen. And so I didn't watch. I'm not interested in watching these guys play flag football. I mean, come on. This is just getting a little ridiculous.
On Saturday, I just looked up whatever they were doing, and Diggs or someone was hanging from a zip line in Vegas indoors, and Matt Leinart has somehow found a way to get his name mentioned on our show. For that reason, I'm already annoyed. Matt Leinart is throwing the ball up in the air as the guy is coming on a zip line, and all he has to do is catch the ball. And they went ecstatic when he caught it. I mean, how hard is that to just throw it up? I mean, and it was just like, what is happening? Like,
They're trying to make it a new dunk contest, is what they're trying to do. Man, it's football. Leave football being football. Let's make it a celebration of the wrap of the season, going in a launch into the off season. Let's just keep it that way. That's just how I feel.
the only positive that I saw was it was good to see McCaffrey, Kittle, Juszczyk, those Warner I kind of saw in the background a little bit on some clips. It was fun to see those guys have fun. You like your favorite players to be smiling and to be enjoying themselves because it lifts your own spirits, right? Like, think of a favorite band that you have, and think of going to a concert and watching them play and hit the guitar notes and have their facial expressions like they're into it. That is fun, right? It's exciting to see someone, what they do, what they love what they do, and they're in their moment doing it. As a fan, you love to see that. That's the only positive thing I can say. And it wasn't even worth me to tune in. I just saw the YouTube highlights. I didn't even tune in live. And so that's the only positive thing I'll say about the Pro Bowl. It's definitely not what I remember when they actually played, and Kevin Green coming off the edge, getting a sack, and real hits, by Steve Atwater. And, I know I'm dating myself, but that was the Pro Bowl to me, guys like that. So watching Jerry Rice with the blue and white jersey with the 49er helmet, right? Like seeing all the different helmets, that was always cool to watch. And you're right, after the Super Bowl. So it put a nice little bow on the season. And so definitely different, but I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page that we're not a fan. So in the comments, let us know if there was something we missed. Was there something you enjoyed about the Pro Bowl? Definitely let us know, because I wasn't seeing it. So let's get into why your nose is red. Tell me about that time.
So yeah, it was a good time. I didn't make it down there for the entire week. I had some work obligations here, and then but I left my house at 5 in the morning on Friday. Drove straight down, or Thursday, excuse me. Drove straight down to the stadium there at Hancock Whitney Stadium, at the University of Southern Alabama. I was a little confused when I drove on because there was just USA everywhere. And I'm thinking, man, these people are very patriotic. And then I realized it was University of Southern Alabama. But no, the really, to me, the best time and the best value I found was that practice on Thursday. So the national team came out. They practiced from 11:30 to 1:30, and we got to watch their practice, to see the fast pace of the practice, be able to see the one-on-one drills, see the position drills, see what the coaches were working on with different players. And so we'll get into a few of the players, a couple guys on defense that were from the national team that really stood out to me. First guy, I fell in love with him pretty quick. It started in the warm-ups and into the 7-on-7 and individual drills. So, defensive backs and individual drills were doing a lot of man coverage drill. So that though a lot of those were played on NFL Network. Some of the more high-profiled or big win reps were shown, but we got to watch over and over and over again. They were really fast. One guy that really, really impressed me was a safety from Illinois named Sidney Brown. And, what impressed me the most is I knew he was a safety, but seeing him in the man coverage drills, how disciplined and how good his footwork was, and he understood how to use his body, and he was in tight coverage every single time. Now, did he give up a couple catches? Yes, but he's a safety. He was doing better in the man coverage drills than about half the corners that were there. And what it immediately made me think of is this a guy, because of what we like to do with our safeties, and think of what we did with Jimmy Ward, how we've used Hufanga, how we've used Tayshaun Gibson, that we like our safeties to be able to play man coverage in the slot if we need to be able to play zone, to be able to play in the box. We ask a lot of the safeties. Now, that was under DeMeco Ryans. It may change going forward, but Kyle Shanahan has made it clear he wants to stick within a very similar or the same scheme. So he was a guy that just really, you saw him out there, and he fit what we do very well. He could do a lot of things very well. He was rarely in the wrong spot. And so, if you watch the Senior Bowl, you did not see him much there. And the reason why I could see from the back end that it was really, he was taking everything away on his side. He was playing sound coverage, and is a guy that he really, body type reminds you a lot of Talanoa Hufanga. The way he moves, the way he's built. Now he's a little more lean than Hufanga is, but he was a player that really jumped out off the field there when you're watching. It was in individual drills. It carried over to 7-on-7, and it carried over to the 11-on-11 period. Just a solid player, took good angles, everything. I fell in love with him as a player during that practice. Really liked what I saw, and it carried over into the game, which was what I was looking for. So he's a guy I'm definitely going to be going and looking a lot more at during this time leading up to the draft. I'll keep an eye on him as it goes to the combine. Another guy that is intriguing, not 100% sold on yet, is a linebacker. Linebacker out of Washington State, a guy, Dayon Henley. He was a guy that his athleticism immediately jumped out at practice. He's fast. He's very much in the type of kind of linebackers that we like. And I do believe that Azeez Al-Shaair is going to be moving on. So we are going to be looking for that third linebacker spot. Now, does Deion Henley drop to us? I don't know. I don't think he's going to be a high enough prospect to go really high in the draft. I don't see it happening. But his athleticism and it really did. It just jumped off the chart. So this was another one in the individual drills. He really shined because they were doing a lot of man coverage drills of running backs out of the backfield, which is one of the hardest things for linebackers to do because you're talking about covering running backs on two-way goes, on double moves. We saw on NFL Network some of the running backs just cooking guys. Deion Henley was the best coverage linebacker as far as in those one-on-one drills. He was always right there on the running backs, and that's what, again, it speaks to his athleticism. His burst in acceleration is really good. He's that new era linebacker like we talked about when we talked about Patrick Willis before we started doing our podcast, of a guy that has that hyper athleticism. Now, the reason I'm not completely sold on him yet is I'm not sure he's the scheme acumen is quite there. He was struggling in some recognition issue things as playing a Mike, and now again we may not ask him to be in that, but any of our linebackers have to be ready to step into that role of a Mike linebacker, where that's what where Fred Warner is. But he did struggle with some of the recognition pre-snap, run fits and coverage fits just a few times, not a lot. But because you could see some of the other linebackers were correcting him, and the defensive coaches were correcting him as they were going. So that's something, again, he may not have been asked to do a lot of that at Washington State. So, and is that something he can grow into? You can teach the scheme side of the game. Okay. You can't teach a guy how to accelerate really quickly to the ball carrier. You can't teach that. You can't teach speed. He has that. And that did, again, translate over to the game. If you watch the game, he had something like 7 or 8 tackles in the game. He was all over the field. And so he's a guy that I think really helped his stock. Again, flies around, hits everything. Great athlete. So those were a couple of guys that I really, that as far as, just jumped out at me that I wasn't real familiar with going into the Senior Bowl, that I came away going, okay, these are a couple of guys that I see fitting what we do very, very well.
So tell me a little bit, there are the guys who sign the crazy contracts, get most of the commercials, and those are the quarterbacks. And was there anything that you saw, the vibe was kind of like, man, there's no Brock Purdy's, there's no, who's out there?
Yeah, so the big name was Max Duggan. He was the big name that was there, the quarterback from TCU, played in the national championship game.
Well, he didn't really play. He suited up.
Right. They were there. Now, as far as the quarterbacks that were there, in practice, he looked the sharpest. His footwork was much better than everybody else's. That's not saying a lot. And that really did not translate over into the game. He was very poor in that game. And again, he's the guy that I walked away from practice feeling the best about. There was the kid, I believe it's Malik Cunningham. I walked away from the game not real impressed, or from the practice not real impressed. That really translated over to the game. He threw a horrible interception, absolutely horrible interception in the game. I did not see anybody from that game that I thought, okay, yes, this will be the next Brock Purdy. This will be a guy that, I would feel great about coming in and being our number 3 quarterback. Jake Haener got the Senior Bowl MVP. I felt like it was almost by default. He made a couple nice throws. I won't, knock him too much for that. but it wasn't like I was overall really impressed. He's very raw. Maybe a kid that can develop. We'll see. We'll see how the 49ers grade him on what they're looking for from quarterbacks. That will really tell us a lot there. But as far as quarterbacks, I felt like that really hampered some of the grading of a few of the receivers and offensive line, or excuse me, tight ends, because the quarterback play was just a little subpar. To me, it was not at the level that it has been at for the last number of years. When you've had guys like Jalen Hurts there, you've had guys like Brock Purdy there, you've had guys that can sling the ball. I just did not feel that way about the quarterbacks at this Senior Bowl.
So it sounds like there's plenty of time. We're not going to do it now, guys. There's plenty of time to talk about the quarterback room in Santa Clara. We're not going to do it today, but it sounds like there's no one really that would get us fired up about that quarterback room. So moving on to defensive line is always intriguing to me, and we have these conversations offline about guys like Givens and guys who make an impact, who may not start, but man, their motor is going and there's a place for them on our roster. Who kind of got you fired up on the line there?
So I love how you put that, a guy whose motor is always running, and that's what really caught my eye. What I was looking for, a lot of the defensive line prospects, especially on the interior, there wasn't a lot of variance. You didn't have a lot of guys who were just seeming to be head and shoulders above everybody else along the defensive line. And what I was looking for was who was giving that consistent effort through all the drills. Okay. It's one thing when you try and turn it on in 11-on-11 drills when you can make a splash. It's another thing when you're in the individual drills with your position coaches of who is working at it and trying really hard. And a guy I really fell in love with, and it started with the individual drills and carried over into the team periods. And he's got a name that's tough to pronounce. He's from Northwestern, kid Adedomiwa. Okay. He's a defensive lineman. He's 284 pounds. He plays interior. He needs to bulk up a little bit more. He needs to add a little bit more to him. He's not athletic enough to be playing an edge. So we don't want another Solomon Thomas situation where you have a guy who's just athletic enough to play the edge, but not athletic enough on the edge to make a difference. That's not the style that we play with. But he was a guy that, man, you want to talk about a guy that you could hear in the individual drills from across a stadium. He was giving it everything. He'd line him up and you'd hear him, just going for it with everything. He was giving every last rep in practice from individual drills through the team drills, everything he had, every single time. And I love that. I love a guy with a high motor. He's not a guy that has great bend. He's not going to bend around the corner, but he showed good explosive power. He showed the ability to anchor a little bit. Again, he will have to add some mass to play. He reminded me of a guy like a Kerry Hyder, okay? Like a Jordan Willis. Maybe not as athletic as a Jordan Willis as far as the ability off the edge and burst off the edge. If he can add a little bit, I see a Kerry Hyder type player, a Kevin Givens type player, a rotational guy along the interior defensive line who is going to work and give you everything he's got, even if it's just in, 10 snaps a game. You're going to get his best 10 snaps. You are going to get everything. Okay, so that's what really jumped off to me as a guy I really liked. Another guy was Keanu Benton from Wisconsin, a bigger guy. He's listed at 312 pounds. He was another guy, again, great effort, great motor. And you love to see that. A bigger guy that can anchor, and that's what we need on the interior. We need that interior to be anchored a little bit better through all the depth that's there. I walked away from the Eagles game saying we need some more interior defensive line help. So that was another guy. I don't think either of those guys are going to go real high. These are going to be later round guys. But I see them as fitting what we do and fitting that rotational aspect of our defensive line well. So a couple guys I'm going to keep an eye on there on the defensive line. And then obviously There's a couple kids from Alabama that were there, and you almost can't go wrong with the defensive lineman from Alabama because they will not step on the field if they don't know what they're doing and they can't anchor and can't do something. So you can always pick it if there's an Alabama defensive lineman there in the 5th round, you take him. That's just how I always feel about it. They're really well coached. They're always gap sound. They know what they're doing, and they're going to be a good prospect there. So there was, I think, a number of seniors coming out on the defensive line that I really liked. As far as interior, on the edge, there's a guy that I'm intrigued by, and I don't know if you've heard of him. His name's Byron Young from Tennessee. I don't know if you've heard of Byron Young. Okay, so what's intriguing about the Byron Young story now? I'll preface why he stands out a little bit more, and then fill in some of the story, and it'll make sense. He looked like a man among boys out there. He wasn't overly dominant, but just body type, everything, the way he moved, the way he carried himself, you could tell this was a man among much younger guys. And then you look up his story and you realize, okay, yeah, well, he's 26 years old. So, but he has not played a lot of football. He was a walk-on there at Tennessee, earned his way onto the field. He was not a highly recruited kid or guy, and he ended up playing. He went to college late, walked on there, and had never played football before, and made the team, and it was now there at the Senior Bowl. I love that kind of story. That's the kind of story you fall in love with, right? And so I think as far as tools, he will be physically farther along than any of these guys are that are coming out. He had good production. I think you're going to get a solid player out of Byron Young. The question is, do you invest a draft pick in a guy who you're probably not going to see physical development from here on out? That you're looking at, he's in the prime, but you're also looking at a guy that you're not waiting around for physical development. That he's going to be a guy that you can plug in and physically will be there. I mean, and you could see it. You could see the guy had a lot of power. Yeah, he had a grown man's body. And so he was really intriguing to me from what we're looking at in a story. So, let us know in the comments, would you pick a 26-year-old out of college? Would you take them, no matter how good they were? Would you pick a defensive lineman if he was going to be a 3rd round pick? If you didn't have the 1st round pick talent, would you pick a 26-year-old 3rd rounder? Would you do it? Let us know in the comments. I think that'd be fascinating to see what people say.
For sure. It's tough. Like, I'd have to see a lot of production right away from a 26-year-old, and so you're banking on that from that aspect when you draft a guy and he's 20, 21 years old. For 2 years, it's okay if it's a project, if it's a 4th round and below, because it's like, well, there's time. But 26, 2 years later, he's pushing 30, right? So that is very interesting to see. So overall, sounds like you had a blast at the Senior Bowl. I'm excited to see, as we get in closer to the draft, some stories will start coming up of who the 49ers have their eyes on, as well as the players that you mentioned. We may start to hear some of the rumblings of other teams that are interested in some of these guys. Be interesting to see, the Packers are looking at this guy, the Seahawks are looking at this guy, and then see where that falls. So I wanted to get you out of here on this. We had a comment that really struck a chord with me about 2 weeks ago, that to not pick our own players when I said, like, it was McCaffrey, Fred Warner, and Bosa. Who would you cut? Who would you start, and who would you bench? And it's like, don't pick Niners, because, and it's almost that feeling of fantasy football when I have to pick CeeDee Lamb, and I hate the Cowboys, but he's productive, and it's like, I don't want him to do well. Or I'm playing someone and they have McCaffrey, and when he scores a touchdown, I can't get fired up because I'm not rooting for him to do well. So I totally understand that sentiment. And so I wanted to do quickly to get you out of here on this, a Pro Bowl edition of we're going to cut someone, we're going to start someone, and we're going to bench. So I want to go Max Crosby. Saw him suit up. Well, you say suit up, throw on a jersey and some sunglasses, at the Pro Bowl. And then I wanted to go Tyreek Hill, and I wanted to go TJ Hawkinson. And so who would you start? Who would you bench? And who would end up not making the 49ers roster if you could pick those three guys?
Oh, that's I like that. I like that one. It's a lot less painful. So
Yeah.
shout out to the comments for bringing that idea
We're
to the
evolving.
table.
We're evolving.
Yeah. And so just so everybody knows too, we will be covering next week too a few more players out of the Senior Bowl. You can't get them all into one show. There's a handful of other guys that I'm really interested in that we'll talk a little bit more about. So again, stay tuned for next week on that. And so as far as start, bench, cut, for me, I'll go with cut, and that's TJ Hawkinson. Okay. To me, I don't see adding value over what we have. So for me, that one was pretty clear. Bench is going to be Max Crosby, because again, while it would be great to have a bookend like Crosby there with Bosa, he operates best playing the spot that Bosa plays. So you're not looking for somebody that's going to be necessarily fit the same role. You want somebody that's going to be in that Samson Ebukam mold, but maybe a little more explosive, a little more productive. Samson Ebukam. Now I really like Samson, but you want to see just a little bit more production to complement Bosa on the other side. Max Crosby, again, I wouldn't turn him down. It's not like saying that he's a bad player or anything. You'd love to have him, but if it came down to addition over what we do, I'm going to take Tyreek Hill as a start, because he adds a skill set that we do not have on this team. Now, people will say, I know what people are going to say. I can hear it already. Well, we have Danny Gray.
Yep,
and Danny Gray is there. And we got that, and he just, and because I've seen this, that
but he's
Danny
not established. He's not yet.
And what I've seen is Danny Gray was sidelined because Trey Lance was sidelined, so he was only brought on to complement Trey's ability with the deep ball. And when Trey went down, that pushed Danny Gray down the depth chart, and so that's why we didn't see Danny Gray. I think that is complete daydreaming. Just gaga. Like I don't think that's looking with reality. I think that's looking with seeing things as you want them to be, not as they are. No, what I saw from Danny Gray on film all year was not that he was just not getting on the field because we didn't have the quarterbacks to really push the ball deep downfield. That is not what I saw at all. Jimmy took a couple deep shots to Danny Gray, and Danny Gray absolutely did not win on his routes. He should have. He was matched up on safeties or corners in a beneficial angle, okay, or a beneficial matchup, and he just flat out got beat by those guys. Jimmy tried to put the ball out there to him. Danny Gray did not win on those like he should have, and he was given a great opportunities to win. Like one, he's running a post route against a corner in a deep third. That should be a win. That should be a win for a corner. If that middle safety drop down was against Carolina, that the corner is playing outside leverage. You have inside leverage on a deep post route. The corner beat him to the spot on a post route throw. Okay, that should not be happening. Why? Because he didn't force the corner to respect anything outside. His route was terrible. He had another one. It was a deep corner route against a cover 2 safety. Again, you're playing against a safety. He doesn't force the safety to respect anything inside. The safety jumps on the corner route outside. Again, if that's Brandon Ayuk in that spot, he wins. Okay? If that's Debo, he wins on those routes. He doesn't have the speed that Danny Gray has, but they will actually win those routes. And he didn't do it. His run blocking was terrible. If you didn't catch the interview with Brandon Ayuk with Brad Graham, shout out to Brad for really doing a great interview there with Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk said, was talked about his run blocking, and there's a saying around the 49ers, no block, no rock. Okay. If you aren't going to block as a wide receiver, you won't be getting the ball. And his blocking was not good. You do not see the field if you are not a good blocking wide receiver. And I already hear what people say, because I've had people saying this to me all season is, well, you can put him out there just to have that route, and you'll threaten the defense. Just his presence will threaten the defense deep. And I go, baloney. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to prove yourself that when you are on the field, that team is just as dangerous doing everything they do. You can't have a specialist come in. It was like people would say, when Brandon Ayuk was struggling last year, why don't we have him running some of the Debo routes and running some of the screens and some of the reverses just to get the ball in his hands and all this stuff. And you go, it doesn't work that way. You're not adding anything. You don't need these guys to replicate just what that guy does. They need to do something different to threaten the defense differently. And it's like running backs. People would say, well, why don't we see Jordan Mason out on the field? Why don't we see TDP out on the field? And Kyle Shanahan addressed that. He said that it was about they had to get better at how they were without the ball in their hands. And people say, well, just bring him in, when you need a run on this way. And you go, you can't do that, because you're telling the defense, we're going to run it. We don't have a threat. We don't have everything that we can do in our pass game. So, and that's why CMC was on the field so much, and Kyle talked about that. He said, because when he's on the field, you always have the equal threat of run and pass. And we saw it in the Eagles game. That second half in the Eagles game, there was no threat of pass. We could not run the ball. It doesn't matter how good you are at running the ball. When you have no threat, or you have a reduced threat of throwing the ball, your run game is a shell of what it used to be, because those guys know their lane fits and they're going to attack those lane fits hard. So if you bring in a guy that they see it on film, every time he comes in, you're going to throw it, then they're going to know they're going to throw it. They're not going to believe in you running the ball. If every time you bring in a guy, we're going to run it 85% of the time, 90% of the time. That is not a good thing. And that's not what Kyle Shanahan wants. So, Danny Gray, to me, I need to see a huge jump from Danny Gray next year to really start to make me a believer. Yes, I get it. He's got the blazing speed. And yeah, it was so great to see the deep ball there in preseason. Okay? Tyreek Hill adds that deep, explosive element that can run every single route. He can win every single route. He is an underrated route runner. He knows how to set things up. That adds an element that this team does not have. Okay? And we saw it with the Dolphins that he's not afraid to get in there and block. He's a little undersized. He's not going to be delivering those crack blocks like a Brandon Ayuk, but he can run every route that's out there. You still can operate a run game, and because he can run every single route and not just try and push a safety deep, and he can win on those deep routes, now you're affecting the rest of the game. So to me, absolutely start Tyreek Hill. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I love the analysis there, because I did agree with Danny Gray not being maybe either what we had hoped, or, it's not like he was a number one overall pick or anything. But I would like to see a huge jump in his ability to do those things, because of course I do want to see him on the field. I don't want him to not be out there, but it has to be the right circumstances. So I do agree. I think you made the right call with Tyreek Hill. He would be a game changer for us. So you heard it here first. We are signing Tyreek Hill. Can you imagine if people don't at us on that? Can you imagine oh my gosh, Johnny Dell reported that we got
Yeah,
Tyreek
no.
Hill.
Yeah, no.
We're not reporting that.
Lose all credibility.
It's just, yeah, exactly. No, we're just having some fun, guys. So thank you. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast. Man, I'm excited for just the off season now to see as we make a wish list and as we figure out who we can draft, who we're going to, we're not going to keep all those draft picks as you mentioned. What are we going to do? Are we going to move up? Are we going to slide down to, what are we going to do? We'll get into all that. We'll talk more about the Senior Bowl. So we will see you later in the week. Remember to like and smash the subscribe button. We want to grow this thing because we want to be able to get like a Brandon Ayuk on the show or someone like that. And that can happen as we grow the show, guys. So we appreciate the following. Please tell your friends, your families, and we will see you next time. Take care of each other. And as always, go Niners.